All right, welcome to another episode of the Business Spotlight. I am here with Stephen Marshall. He is the owner of the Sancus Group. Thank you, Stephen, for being on the Business Spotlight. You know, we value your time and taking the time out of your day to learn more about you and your business. Business Spotlight, Stephen, is great for many reasons. Number one, it helps you be introduced to people in the network that we have here in our Las Vegas Valley. And also it helps with the exposure of the Action Coach family that is in 80 countries and growing with over 1,000 coaches. And it also goes out to your database. So giving them a subject matter expert in what you do, this will be a very good conversation. And I think people will find a lot of value in it. So I am excited, Stephen, to learn more about you and your business. So without further ado, can you tell us about your business and how long have you been doing it?
Sure. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about our business and what we do. Sancus Group is a consulting business that's a little different than most. It's a consulting business that focuses primarily on organizations and how they work. Quite often, they don't work very well. And where organizations are having those kinds of difficulties, we've got experienced and trained individuals to work with team members and more specifically leaders of teams to try to help overcome some of those, shall we say, inefficiencies that happen to make the team work in a more efficient and effective way. The best way I can describe it is if you think about a business and a team in terms of a computer, we've got hardware and software. Most consultants are always talking about hardware. They talk about everything from business plans to operating plans and marketing plans, all these things that make a business go, all the numbers, the hardware. What we do is we focus on what I call the soft underbelly. It's the software of the business. How do all these things fit together? How do they work together? And when they don't work very well, how do you diagnose those problems and fix them? And that's what Sancus Group does.
Wow. Very, very good info there. What do you feel, Stephen, is most understood about your industry?
That's most what?
Most misunderstood about the industry.
Most misunderstood. I think that most business leaders and entrepreneurs really minimize the impact of poor engagement on their bottom line. I think the effect on a company's ability to sell their products and services, their ability to operationalize those products and services are so dependent on people, and the inefficiencies of those people really negatively affect the bottom line. And that's something that I think a lot of business leaders and entrepreneurs don't really think about very much, but is very real. It's probably the biggest misunderstood concept that applies to what we do.
Oh, I agree 100%, where it's once you understand that side of it, you always have to continue to test, measure, see what works, what doesn't work, and make sure that things are starting to flow. So that way they do start to gain some profit, right?
Flow is a great word for that. Yes.
That's right. Who would you say is your ideal customer or target client?
So our ideal target is a business leader that really sees and gets the trouble that's occurring in their business or in their group, but is lacking a vision on what to do about it. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is there's a lot of business leaders that when they look at their organization, they think it works great, even if it doesn't, but they think it works great. And if it's working great for them, then it's working great for them. The folks that we engage with are the folks that typically look at their organization and say, I'm really not happy about where we are. I'm not happy about one of my middle managers and how they're performing. I'm not happy with how our team works together. I see some ineffectiveness, but I don't know what to do about it. And that's what we're really good at.
Yeah, very good. I think most people don't pay attention to that, right? The successful business owners are constantly engaged and constantly checking in to make sure everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing. Where others that, what we find is that, hey, we're making decent money, but things might not be going so well inside. So
yes. Yeah. And
understand where you're coming. Oh yeah. Yeah. 100%. So part of the goal with the business spotlight, Stephen, is to be an inspiration or educational piece to inspire someone who's looking to get into entrepreneurship. What has been the biggest learning curve since you started the business with you guys?
The biggest learning curve since I've gotten into business.
Mhm.
So for budding entrepreneurs, I think that was the context of your question.
Mhm.
I would say that for most entrepreneurs, somebody who's thinking about getting into business and they look off of that cliff and they're thinking about leaving a job or leaving a salary or leaving the security, and they're standing on the edge of that precipice and they're looking over the edge into what they believe is a canyon. I would tell them that what I've learned is where you think you're stepping off of a cliff, you're really only stepping off of a curb. And if you're really prepared, and if you're really smart, and if you're really willing to work hard, you'll find that that drop off from what you've known in your past to where you really ultimately want to be isn't nearly as much of a drop off as you fear it to be.
Right.
That's
Right.
probably the
It's
biggest thing I learned. So I had to go through that myself.
yeah, it's a lot of education. Entrepreneurship comes with zero instruction, and it can be a lonely road, but if you surround yourself with good people, you have, a good team around you, and you are continuously educating yourself, you learn a lot, is what I heard.
And willing to work really, really, really hard.
That's true, right? They have to be willing to do the work.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, who is the most influential person in your life, and how have they impacted you?
So I have had the good fortune in my life of having what I refer to as three fathers.
Mm,
One of course, was my biological father, and like most of us, I had the opportunity of learning discipline and hard work. And sometimes when I was growing up, I didn't want to learn those things, but did nonetheless, and that was a
right,
big impact. I also had the benefit of having an adopted father later in life, someone who became a mentor to me in my personal life that was a real benefit to me. And then thirdly, and I hate to use three examples, but they're all really relevant and true,
right.
was my mentor in the work that we're doing with Sancus Group, a
Mm,
gentleman by the name of Norman Shub. Norman was my mentor. He taught me the concepts that I still carry to this very day. Ironically, he originally taught them to me as the business leader, as the client, if you will. And the things that I learned and how it benefited me in my businesses were really tremendous. And so I'm trying to carry that torch. Sadly, we lost Norman a few years ago, and but I think about him often. He really impacted me in my professional life and my personal life. And we're using those concepts and those frameworks that I learned many, many years ago in the work that we do at Sancus Group.
yeah, that's very powerful right there. Is having three good men in your life to, mentor and push you and challenge you and get you in that frame of mindset of, being successful. So that's very fortunate, because not a lot of people have that, at least in
Sure.
my experience with working with people. They're looking for that, and they're yearning for it.
And that's the reason we're doing what we do. Is I'm very interested in helping those. I'm a big fan of entrepreneurs, and anything that I can personally do to help is something that's a big part of why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah. Um, what would you say is one thing your business or in your business ventures that you did not expect?
Oh wow. Um, Honestly, I would say it is learning to focus on the value of how people engage with other people. So
Mm.
I'm an engineer by degree. And
Mhm.
so, I grew up studying science and STEM and all those things. And then I went on to accomplish all of the classes in business and accounting and finance and all of those things, all the things that I now call the hardware of business. And
Right.
those things have tremendous value, and they're all necessary. But the big surprise was the real benefit of learning how to get teams to work better together to accomplish goals. And the real power that's behind that was a real surprise for me on my journey as a business leader and an entrepreneur.
Wow. I appreciate you sharing that with us. That's some big takeaways right there for a lot of the viewers.
Well, it's one of those things that you mention in a a 45-second soundbite, but it's
Mhm.
literally decades of pain and difficulty and struggle and all of those things in practicality, because you're dealing with people, and
Yeah.
people are inherently complicated. But if you can get those dials turned and get it tuned just right, it's just amazing what can happen with a work group. And that wasn't
Mhm.
necessarily something that I expected when I started my journey in business.
Yeah. Yeah. People and the way the mind thinks are very interesting. And I think in our experience, right, is that our minds are genuinely curious, and people are at the center of that, and how they react, and how do we communicate with them, what's the best way to get them going, has been very, very impactful.
Yeah.
What are the most helpful resources that you found with your business?
Oh, wow. Other people, probably the number one resource is the engagement with other people, the things that I've learned from them. Some of those are people I've known in my real life. Some of those are folks that I've read. And then in the modern era, of course, it's everything from video vignettes to YouTube videos from brilliant people in the modern
Yeah.
era that we watch in lieu of a book. Um,
Hmm.
that really garnering the collective intelligence of a diverse group of people, and then trying to integrate those concepts into what I do every day has had a real big impact. People are a fantastic resource.
Oh yeah. So it's continuing education, studying
Oh yeah.
others. If Stephen, if you could start another business tomorrow, what would it be?
Oh wow. Um, that's a really difficult question. Um, if I could start another business tomorrow, what would it be? Honestly, I think it's the business we're doing with Sancus Group. And that doesn't
Mhm.
exactly answer the question because I've already
Right.
started this business. But I think that the struggles that we're having in our culture, I think that the difficulties we're having with modern technology in the culture of organizations, the diversity of mindsets with millennials entering the workplace, new ways of working, remote work, hybrid work. There's this big pot of stew of difficulty that's coming from what's happening with the acceleration of the pace of change in the work environment these days. And so
Mhm.
this type of work, I think, is something that is going to be more and more critical going forward. So I can't think of a better business to be in at this particular era of our business life here, certainly in the United States, if not in the entire West.
Right, right. So it does answer the question. You truly love what you do. And
Oh yeah,
when
yeah.
when you love what you do, it's not really work, right? It's
Oh
making
no.
an impact and helping the economy, because by you working with business owners and entrepreneurs, you're helping the ecosystem.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And we need more and more and more of this. It's getting tougher and tougher out there.
Oh yeah, I agree. So as we're getting out of COVID, along this entrepreneurial journey, right? What have you personally learned about yourself, Stephen?
Oh, I would say that the fears of my imagination far outweigh the realities of danger in the real world. Um,
Mhm.
I think it's easy to get wrapped up in the fears of our imaginations,
Yeah.
and many of us did over the last 2.5 years. I think if there's anything to take from it, it's that we are both individually and collectively far more resilient than we think we are. And
Oh
however
yeah.
bad you think it might be, it's probably not going to be that bad. And we're all going to be okay. It might not go exactly the way we wanted it to, but we're still going to be okay. I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah. I'd have to agree with you. It's just know that what's in our journey is embrace it. and you never know what that outcome is going to look like.
And I rather enjoy not knowing. So that's different than most, I think, but I rather enjoy not knowing.
So another question I have is, what makes you feel inspired?
What makes me feel inspired is when I see light bulbs go off.
Mm.
So awareness work is a big part of what we do. And when you see someone realize something new for the first time, and it really impacts them in a way that can make fundamental change happen, is so inspiring. And it just makes you want to do it again and again and again and again. That's the biggest thrill that I get.
Yeah, having those here at Action Coach, we call them blind flashing of the obvious, when they have that aha moment, right? And they start to see the tunnel, the light at the end of the tunnel. Really, really impactful.
Yes.
As we start to wrap up, any exclusive offers that you're currently offering, and what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Well, the best way to connect with us, like most businesses these days, is through our website at sancusgroupconsulting.com. You'll find a quick description of what we do, but then all the relevant contact information can be found there. So that's the easiest way to reach us. In terms of special offers, what we do is, as you would imagine, it's highly interactive. And as a result, the scope of work in the beginning of a discussion with somebody who's interested in what we do, it varies greatly. Some people are only interested in individual work. Some people are interested in work for a specific work team. Other folks are looking at much broader scopes of work. And so it's highly variable. We find ourselves in kind of the post-COVID era. And I'm happy to suggest it today that what our typical rates had been for the work that we do, which does add tremendous value. We have been offering 20% discounts on our rates to try to encourage people to get back into looking at these sorts of things that kind of fell on the wayside during the COVID era. So that's something we can do for sure.
Well, thank you for sharing, and appreciate you being on this episode of the Business Spotlight. Stephen, again, I want to thank you for your time. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that maybe I did not ask that you want to let the viewers know?
No, I think your questions were great. I appreciate your responses. It sounds like some of what I had to say resonated with you, and you've had a little bit of experience in these matters, as frankly all of us that have worked in teams have. And I appreciate you reaching out. And I look forward to helping in any way that I can.
Likewise. Thank you again, Stephen.
Thank you, Edgar.